Nintendo cleans up award season holiday memory number 3 and the channel's first expert guest. It's the LP Podcast. Hello and happy Tuesday! Today's the day of the week where I do more talking than playing of Nintendo games, but Nintendo's the topic all the same. Starting off with awards. We spoke about the nominations a few weeks ago, and the finals have rolled in. Starting, of course, with Polygon. They've unleashed upon us their top 10 games. We'll start with 5 here because it's interesting to me that Nintendo's 2023 netted them not 1, not 2, but 3 titles in Polygon's top 5. Starting off here with number 5, Pikmin 4. A great call. I'm a huge fan of the Pikmin franchise that's long since been established, and the fact that they're garnering this much recognition for what was an excellent addition to the series, it gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 thumbs up. As many thumbs as I can spawn. It deserves it. Scrolling on down the line, immediately following Pikmin 4, at number 4 is Super Mario Bros. Wonder. A love story to the 2D platformers of old that was well made enough in a way that allowed it to appeal to both veterans of the series as well as newcomers. I'd mentioned that my wife and I did a Let's Play of it together. She had never beaten a 2D platformer. I grew up with Mario. We were able to do it together in such a way that felt cohesive, natural, entertaining, all the same. And then, of course, you might imagine the third installation of the 3 Nintendo games in the top 5 is going to be Fire Emblem and... No! Legend of Zelda. Tears of the Kingdom. Yes, the hugest, most significantly expansive installation in the entire Zelda universe rightfully gets the number 1 spot. However, and we'll talk about this here in a few moments, the number 1 spot is not Zelda's alone. You did see some other contenders at 2 and 3 as we scrolled through, and we'll talk about those in a bit here. But for the purposes of Polygon's list, they chose to put number 1 Legend of Zelda. And I think that's a great call. Really, I do. I could be a bit biased, perhaps. You know, I consider myself a Zelda fan more than anything else. It's my favorite franchise. I grew up with it. It was my first video game. So I think that perhaps, like I said, some semblance of bias may be at play here. However, the game is good. All right? The game is good. I have a separate video being conceptualized right now, kind of talking about it, but Tears of the Kingdom, it took what Breath of the Wild had established as expansive, as new, as novel, as excellent, and effectively doubled it. So, hey, I think it deserves all the awards it can possibly get. And as we transition over to GameSpot's list of the top 10 games of 2023, we'll no doubt see that. Now, GameSpot did not rank them. It is just a grouping of 10 in no particular order, and I can respect that, right? Because some of these games, it is difficult to pick between. Of course, you see here, more Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom representation. How could you, really? I can understand an argument to be made, perhaps, by not giving it the number 1 spot. I mean, I can barely understand that, just because, but if you were to omit it from your top 10 entirely, well, then I might throw up. But thankfully, I will refrain from regurgitation. GameSpot, goodness gracious. GameStop and GameSpot. You switch the P's and the T's, and it's got me on my knees. All right, Tears of the Kingdom. Very good. Now, I didn't vet this list prior to actually beginning the recording of this podcast. Octopath Traveler 2 making their top 10 as well is pretty neat as well. Now, of course, not just a inherent Nintendo game, but it is in the same vein of neo-retro RPGs that are near and dear to my heart, so I think that's very neat. Scrolling down, I'm expecting to see a Mario Wonder. There we go. Again, the love story to the veterans of the franchise that also is warm and welcoming to new players absolutely deserves a spot on this list. And that rounds it out for GameSpot's top 10. Now we go to the big show, the whole kit, kat, and caboodle, Jeff Knightley's Game Awards. Nintendo had a whopping 15 nominations going into this huge thing. And I say huge thing, specifically. The Game Awards was like 5 days long. Maybe closer to 3.5 hours, but still, all right. I'm old. I'm 31. I almost said 30. but I'm even older than that. I can't stay up much later than 9:30, so when this thing progressed deeper into the evening, well, I fell asleep and I had to check back up on the results the day after. Anyways, Nintendo did not win all 15 nominations. Of course, it competed against itself in a number of classifications, but it did win 3 very, very impressive awards. We'll start with Zelda, since that won the Best Action Adventure Game. If we scroll down here, we may yet be able to find it, and we'll see if that's even in the same order. It is indeed Action Adventure Game. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom was the winner over some impressive contenders like Alan Wake and Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Scrolling down even further, Best Family Game, Super Mario Bros. Wonder. I mean, that ties in nicely to what I had said about it earlier in the show, is that it appeals to the veterans and new players alike, and that's not even new adult players, right? People are getting their children into it. People are playing with, you know, the infants in their family. They're playing with the fetus in the womb. It's amazing. Technology's gone so far. Scrolling down even further, the third and final award that Nintendo won from its many nominations was in fact the Best Strategy Game. And I may have passed by it. Pikmin 4. Pikmin 4. More recognition for the excellent 4th edition, making the tetralogy that is the Pikmin franchise. And all I've got to say about that is hopefully this spurs Nintendo to perhaps create another Pikmin game, a Pikmin 5, if you will. Perhaps a little bit sooner than the time it took between Pikmin 3 and Pikmin 4, not counting, of course, the remaster for the Nintendo Switch. So, Nintendo doing a great job in terms of success, both financially in 2023 as well as critically. And this is not it. Nintendo's awards were not limited to gaming. No, the Golden Globes released some nominations. Okay, so this is not final just yet, but nominations, 3 of which the Super Mario Brothers movie was included in. How about that? Isn't that amazing? Now, the first one that it was nominated for, probably the most obvious one, the Best Animated Film, right? The Super Mario Brothers movie is already one of the top 5 best grossing animated films of all time. So, I mean, goodness gracious, it's got to be in the nominations for the best animated film of the year it was released in, right? I mean, it kind of goes without saying. So, I think that's excellent. Number 1. It obviously was very well made. Illumination and Nintendo did a fantastic job collaborating together on this, making it, again, very similar to Mario Brothers Wonder, something that's both appealing to longtime, fans of the franchise, as well as new people. I think they did an excellent job. The art style is fantastic. It's very welcoming while still deviating slightly from, what we had not anticipated, but perhaps grown to be accustomed to, if that makes sense. So, 2 thumbs up there. Another thing they were nominated for was Best Original Song. You all know what that is, right? Yes, Jack Black's svelte vocal cords spurting out peaches ad nauseum. I mean, shoot, it made my playlist, and I repeated that thing for a whole month after I first heard it. Excellent. The covers of it, excellent. It's a great, great, great song, and I think that Jack Black better be there to take the award when they win it. And third and finally, the Best Box Office Hit. Of course, as I mentioned, it was one of the best grossing animated films of all time. While that doesn't necessarily compete super favorably against the live action films of the world, it was still a massive, massive box office success. And while I can't fully commit to saying that I expect it to win that, I do expect Nintendo to win 2 of those 3 awards and have a great, great end to a great year. And 2023 was truly the year that just kept on giving and giving and giving and giving and giving for Nintendo.
And on the subject of gifting, of giving, of helping people, few people exemplify that as well as my next guest here. With over $5 million raised, he's the mastermind behind Zeldathon, a driving force behind TRG Coliseum, and an inspiration to gaming creators big and small alike. He's SuperMCGamer. MC, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely. How you doing today?
I am doing very well. I mean, it's not every day that someone of your caliber gets to join the show, first and foremost, so excuse me if I'm a little starstruck.
No. Thank you for the very illustrious introduction. I'm just a dude trying every day. That's what I like to say.
Well, humble to boot. I again, thank you, and I'm curious, MC. So walk me through this a little bit, if you will. So again, $5 million raised. It had to start somewhere. How did, I guess, your interest, let's start with Nintendo games or video games specifically, how did that sort of manifest itself originally?
Yeah, Nintendo gaming in general, that was a kind of happy accident. My family had always like had some sort of gaming console because I had an older sister. Like she was like 6, well she is 6-7 years older than me, and so she got a Game Boy very early on. And but my sister is very much, she was the one who went and played soccer. She's the one who, you know, did baseball. She did all the sports stuff. So she was always outside running everywhere. And so eventually I just stole her Game Boy, and she had a copy of Link's Awakening. And I played that enough that for my next birthday after that, that's when I got my Game Boy Color, and things just kind of spiraled out of control from that point, I think, overall.
It was love at first sight.
Absolutely. No, I mean, my mom, she was always kind of the gamers. Like they had a Super Nintendo, like that. There's an image of like my like cousins playing Super Nintendo in the house, my mom's Super Nintendo, and I'm like a child trying to climb up to see like the box. Like you can see me in the corner of the photo climbing up to get to the Super Nintendo box. I'm like, oh no, this is genetic. I think my mom passed the gaming gene down to me.
That is awesome. That is super cool. That's not something I honestly hear from, at least with a lot of my peers. They seem to almost go the opposite way, right? Like the son of parents that perhaps don't quite understand gaming. That's excellent. What does your mother think of your career now, especially with all the things you've accomplished?
She likes to say she always knew it would turn out okay. I don't know if I believe that. There was definitely those times where she was like, all he does is play those dang games. My grandma was the one who's like, is he ever gonna stop playing those games? And now when I call up my grandma and I tell her, like, she's a big lover of St. Jude, and so when I call up and say, yeah, well, we just raised, you know, $100,000 for St. Jude, she's just like, I can't believe it. When you were playing those video games, I was not okay. I thought your mother was just letting you lollygag all the time and nothing was gonna happen, but here you are. And I'm like, oh well, whatever, I guess it's just a video game.
Hey, I mean, that's fantastic. It's got to be a little bit vindicating. There has to be some sort of like, was there a light switch along the way where you thought, hey, I could actually, you know, I can do something with this, or did it all just kind of fall into place? How did it go from a hobby perhaps to a career?
That's interesting. I always was really interested in like the meta media universe around video gaming. Like I have like pictures of my bedroom growing up where like once E3 started to be a thing, I would like make E3 decorations. I'd love to watch the shows and the press conferences and all the cringe that came along with them. And eventually I started getting into watching, you know, YouTube came about and Google Video before the merger happened. Man. And I watched a fan film of The Legend of Zelda called Legend of Link. I don't know if I can recommend it. It sure is a trip. It's long and made by like some high school students, but before they went to like college, you know, like in that intervening time. It's stupid. It's not really great quality, but it definitely has a little bit of a cult following. And I was like, well, that was really cool. I'd love to do like some Zelda in real life stuff. I started watching a Mario in real life type of show on YouTube, and that led me to the world of live streaming, where I saw the Speed Gamers. They're a group that don't speedrun games despite their name. And that's where I saw them playing Final Fantasy for charity. And I was like, oh, that seems like fun. And oops, that was like accidentally defined my life a little bit.
Well, that's an awesome way to take that, right? You have this passion, obviously, that you're very consumed with, but then not necessarily thinking of it from a selfish standpoint, excuse me. It seems like you kind of identified the charity side of it as something you wanted to pursue more than anything. And
I would say so, but yeah. I also would, I realize there's an important part to this puzzle of how I got to, I want to live stream that I didn't mention, which was around that time. I was also in the age group of like 15-year-olds who would watch the illustrious television program iCarly.
Oh boy, yes, classic.
And I was like, man, I want to make a live stream show that's all goofy and funny with my friends, and it can be about video games. And that eventually kind of inspired it as well. So it was like a combination of like seeing other people like make Zelda, Mario in real life, and things like iCarly, where I was like, oh, this seems like fun. I can make things with my friends. And the Speed Gamers kind of brought in the charity aspect to that.
That is funny. I mean, definitely a product of your time, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's great when you can kind of take these external sources or inspirations and build something that's very obviously done a lot of good for a lot of people. You know, not just purely from the charity standpoint, but from an entertainment standpoint, dude. I mean, I speaking for myself specifically, I've watched a number of productions that you've been involved in, and every single one of them have been fantastic, despite you probably having qualms with some of them. I wanted to know
No. I'll speak to that, because I'm all, you know, whenever I'm part of a production and things start crossing the line, quote unquote, and like there have been one or two instances where I've actually had to step people aside and be like, hey, let's chill out a little bit, like for real. But most of the time I understand I'm the heel, and I have to be like, you can't say that on TV, Steve Harvey moment. And
it's good comedic timing.
That's part of my role. I play that role a little bit.
That's awesome. Well, hey, I mean, you do a great job, clearly. So I think we can all appreciate that. So we've talked kind of about the live streaming, right? About the charity work.
Mm-hmm.
As I understand it, and obviously most people might not know this, but you are diversifying even further. You offer a consulting service, right? For streamers, for Let's Players, for gaming creators. Do I have that correct?
I've been really just like hoping to get really involved with the side of helping other people, because as I've been planning a lot more events lately, one thing I've noticed is I still have a lot of free time, but it doesn't really align to like a 4-hour block that I can stream myself. I just like, I have like a pocket of 2 hours here, a pocket of an hour here, I have a pocket of like an hour and a half here, and I'm like, this is time I could still be using for something. And part of me has been trying to use it for hobbies and stuff that aren't work, but part of it is like, I have knowledge I think I can share, and so some people have found it useful, valuable, and I just love trying to share that knowledge and help people do good things and live stream and broadcast and make videos when I can't.
Well, I mean, I can speak for myself, whoever's listening, and tell you that it's absolutely 100% worth it. I patronized MC, goodness gracious, at this point, going on 5 months ago, and it's been nothing but excellent ever since. So if you're considering it, I highly encourage you to shoot him an email, or you've got a website. Is that correct?
Creator.report. Get your creator report today. It's like a report. Originally it was supposed to be like a report card, and I was like, wait, I kind of want to talk more than just give you a letter grade, you know? So I like to type. I like to give info, because I'll tell you something. Actually, a little small anecdote. I had one of my friends who's a larger broadcaster actually reach out to me and get this support from me, and I was like, when I saw the email come in, I was like, oh, what do you mean? How am I supposed to be like tell you what to do? You know what to do more than me. What do you mean? And then I was like, well, let me open up the broadcast and see if I notice anything that I want to make notes of. I still ended up with pages of notes, and I was like, oh gracious. And it was an interesting moment, because I feel like I'm somebody who can be hypercritical, but still I've been really working on trying to also make sure that I don't come out being like, hey, your stream looks bad or anything. Hey. I want to give it helpful, constructive advice.
He took that excerpt right from his report on my channel. Don't let him fool you.
Yeah, stream looks bad, even though I do YouTube videos.
No, I jest. It's tough love, right? It's all from a place of helping, and definitely helped me.
And I try to build it. Yeah,
I'm sure it's helped everyone else. And It's the culmination of what you said, you know, was a long time coming, ever since you were a child, growing up with video games, turning into a business, doing the charity side of work. Undoubtedly, you've seen a number of things inside the, you know, the market, the industry, so to speak, change. I'd be curious to pick your brain on that, MC. Like, what do you think has changed the most with, I guess, gaming broadcasting specifically?
It's a really interesting thing to talk about. I think the landscape has changed the most, and what's had the most impact is just the number of people involved from all aspects, from companies and you know, corporate people trying to get their foot in the door. You see more people trying to become broadcasters and be like, this is going to be my job. I am going to be a successful broadcaster tomorrow. And you get a lot of people who are watching. And especially through 2020 and the COVID pandemic, it exploded. And at this point, it's cooling off. People are, I think some of the people at, like, especially this year, who in 2020 were like, my new job is broadcaster, are having the rude 2023 awakening of, I might need to go get a job and not make my job broadcasting. And that's hard, especially because everybody wants that dream. You know, it's a really nice thing to be able to do. And I think that because there's been so many people from everywhere getting involved, it's been, all the resources are stretched a little thin. Back in, I think in the early days, if you reached out to a company, you said, I'm a broadcaster, here are my viewership statistics, would you like to be involved? You know, I'll say a brand that will never sponsor me, Diet Coke. I love you, Diet Coke. I drink you every day. I would love to have an official sponsorship from Diet Coke. We're at the point where in the very early days, you know what, there might have been a dang chance. Nowadays, you gotta be like really, really popular. There's so many people out there every day emailing these marketing, you know, people, and that type of problem stretches everywhere. I think you see people who are just trying to like make emotes for their channel, and they're finding artists is always difficult, and artists are able to charge more now for their emotes, which I support absolutely, because there's just a lot of demand for stuff like that. You see viewership kind of dipping across the board because there's just so many people to watch. And at the same time, you have that problem that you saw especially on YouTube several years ago, even pre-pandemic, where the big get bigger in terms of viewership, and the people on the lower end have to fight more to even get to what was considered once to be a really powerful thing. Was like getting to 100,000 subscribers was used to be like, congratulations, you've made it. Nowadays, if you're not cracking 1 million, you know, don't bank on Diet Coke gonna look at your email. They'll hit delete and not even proceed on the conversation. That type of stuff, I think, has made a really big impact.
No, I mean, it's a great way you put it too, because it's kind of, you know, reflects what I see out there. Obviously, being a smaller creator, I understand that the barrier to entry is extraordinarily low, right? You know, anyone, like you said, can chase this dream, so to speak, but the actual barrier to success is just rising and continually rising. And I think that's very interesting to hear from someone like yourself, who's kind of watched that transpire over the last decade plus. I mean,
I would actually say it's really I would say it's really difficult right now, especially as a creator, because you can make really quality stuff. You can have the right voice, you can have the right type of attitude, you can make consistent content on a schedule and still not break, you know, your viewership totals. You will still see your numbers go down sometimes. Yep. And, you know, like with my consulting service, I really try to give the best tips, but unfortunately the problem is, at the end of the day, if you're doing your best and you're really making it the best you can be, there's only so much you can do before it starts to become a really costly and difficult thing to break through, you know?
Yeah. I mean, what I've told myself kind of, and you're almost like speaking to the choir, man, when you say these things, I need to maintain like the right attitude, like you said, consistency, hope for a little bit of luck, and then just really let the chips fall where they may. I think that nothing can be relied upon, and I'd be curious to hear you, I guess, confirm that.
Yeah, no, there's nothing that really can, like you said, be relied on. You know, there's all the tricks in the book, you know, and there's like the get subs quick schemes where you can be like, I'm going to do a giveaway for a Nintendo Switch Pro Lite XL. And you know what? Congratulations. You're going to get some subscribers, but are they going to click on your videos in the future? Probably not. And those type of things, just it's difficult. And you know, when you see broadcasters now, I'll bring up Ludwig, who I really enjoy seeing what he's always up to. You know, him and similar broadcasters are now really scaling it up to like, we want to put on events. Like, we will continue, you know, like, hey, you want to watch me play, you know, new Super Mario Brothers? I'll play new Super Mario Brothers for you for 2 hours, you know, occasionally. But every quarter, you're going to see something big we're going to put on. We're going to put on chess boxing, and we're going to have professional cameras on stuff. And when I see that type of stuff, and somebody who also makes events, from my perspective, I still have that feeling of like, how the heck am I supposed to compare? How am I with my Elgato face cam supposed to go up against that? How am I? And the good news is that there is a lot of room to grow. There is a lot of people out there watching, and you can have a nice, tight-knit audience of people who do genuinely enjoy what you do. And as long as you don't start to take that for granted or discount that, I think that anybody can have a good time. And as long as you have the right framing that this is a hobby, if something goes well with it, great. If not, this is a hobby that I enjoy. And I think that's the type of, you know, perspective you need to have on things overall.
It's extraordinarily refreshing to hear someone of your caliber say that, because I moderate a subreddit, the Let's Play subreddit, and that's something that I tell people all the time. It's a hobby. Stop trying to make it something more than what it is before it changes it all. Enjoy it. Love it for that.
If you're destined for greatness, it's going to come to you. If you're not, guess what? You're not going to enjoy yourself if you're bashing your head into a wall, you know, 8 hours a day, recording videos that you only want money from. It's not going to go well for you.
Exactly right. Well, I mean, I guess I can kind of derive what your answer to this next question would be based on that, but I'm going to ask it anyways because I'm curious. If you had to give yourself advice from, you know, the get-go, from future MC to past MC, what would you say?
Invest in Apple. No.
Diversify.
Yeah. That's a you know, it's a difficult question. I think the best, like obviously there is the way of saying, like, you know, be Markiplier now, be Ludwig, you know, from the early days, be a Vine Sauce early on. But those people are still those people. You can't become them. They got what they got because they are them, and you are you. What you should do is just tell yourself, if I went back in time, I would tell myself the things I've learned about what I've done and what I've wanted to do, the lessons I've learned to this point. I wouldn't say, here's how you go and become Mr. Beast. I was never destined to be Mr. Beast, and going back in time to tell me to go, you know, give $10,000 for every hour you stay in a freaking grocery store or whatever, that won't work for me if I give myself that advice a decade ago. What might help is say, hey, bro, why don't you remember that to buy some nice microphones and really structure what you do in a way that makes sense. And as you get people involved, you know, start to learn about business, start to learn about management, start to do the right things to be somebody that people can rely on, because those are the hard things that, you know, sometimes you have to learn the hard way over the years, and it'd be nice to kind of clue yourself in early. Oh, save for taxes, bro. Save for taxes. Actually, a decade ago, I should have been saving for my taxes a decade ago. I'm getting old. Still save your taxes, bro. Don't be a dummy. All right, that's my advice.
Uncle Sam always wants their cut. No, well said. Completely agree. Completely agree. We're up on time, MC. I greatly appreciate you hopping on today. Again, an inspiration. The dude does great consulting work. If you like what I put out, obviously he is responsible for some percentage of that, and he does a number of things. MC, do you want to tell the people what you've got going on?
Yeah, you can you can go to creator.report if you want to get some consulting. That's something that I would love to provide for people. But also, I like to doing charity events. I have Zeldathon coming up at the end of December. That's Zeldathon Dimensions, celebrating A Link Between Worlds and the whole Zelda series. That starts December 27th at zeldathon.com. And in the meantime, I of course work with my good friends over at Director Leaf, Campy, shout outs, who helps run and put on the Coliseum events, which we are now doing more than one a year, and it's going great, and we're having a fun time with that. So keep an eye out for Coliseum from Director Leaf as well.
Well, you guys know I'll be in the audience for that. It was SuperMCGamer. Thanks again, man.
Thank you.
Goodness me. $5 million in charity. Like, can you believe it? That's amazing. All right, I feel good when I donate like $5, $6 after a trip to Walmart to the Salvation Army, but SuperMCGamer, truly a rare breed. But that brings us to our final segment. Continually speaking, I suppose, on the subject of giving in some capacity. This third and not final, but near final, memory of holidays past. So, last week we talked about the decision I had to make between the PS2 and the GameCube, and how that went. This week, it's in that same holiday season, in fact. So at the time, we were living in South Carolina. We traveled back to Colorado to visit where our family were at. And while this wasn't directly, up against the holidays, it was in the lead up to it, and we celebrated with them all the same. I have a cousin who is essentially the same age as me, and we were both big fans of Pokemon growing up. And I didn't have a whole lot of Pokemon friends where I lived at the time. Being that my father was in the military, also we moved around a lot, so I didn't necessarily have a huge amount of time to make friends, really. So things like link trading, battling, not necessarily the easiest for me to come across. However, at this specific holiday get-together for the family, there was link trading. And what's more, he had Pokemon Gold, I had Pokemon Silver. And you know what that means? There were certain Pokemon that one could get, the other could not. So, rounding it out in this theme of giving, we were able to swap each other the Pikmin. Not Pikmin, goodness gracious. I've got Pikmin 4 on the brain. We were able to swap each other the Pokemon that the other could not get. And it's kind of a simplistic memory, maybe not as exciting as you might think, but for me, and recalling it now, it was an amazing feeling to finally be able to utilize the link cable that for whatever friggin' reason I had. I mentioned I didn't have friends that could trade with it, but I was prepared. And gosh darn it, I went out to the playground, I went to school, I had the link cable just in case. And it came in handy at this specific instance. And as small and minute perhaps of an instance as it was, it stands out to me. It really does. So I encourage you to engage in some act of giving, if you can, of course, right? And that doesn't have to be financial or anything like that. It could be giving your time or your attention or something, because there's a lot of people out there that need exactly that. People that need a friend, people that need to talk, people that need someone's time. And any time really is a good time to do that, but especially now in the holidays, where people are surrounding themselves with friends and family, and others perhaps may not have that. I think it's a good idea to follow in MC's footsteps and be charitable. So, with that in mind, this has been the LP Podcast. I'm LP, your host, and I hope that you have an excellent week, and I'll talk to you again next Tuesday.